Great, I hope you enjoyed it. Our next guest for today, he just did that wonderful announcement over the top for all of us. His name is Jamie Durie. You might remember him from a little show on Channel 9 a few years back. He is an Australian design icon with more than 24 years experience crafting spaces and more than 40 international design awards to his name. He was awarded a Medal of the Order of Australia in 2012 in recognition of his commitment to and work in the environmental sector. He opened his doors of patio landscape architecture as well as design and Durie design in March 1998, and he is here to talk to you today about why building is a critical aspect for us and our environment. Please welcome to the stage, Jamie Durie.
Thank you so much. G'day everyone, how are you? It is very nice to be here today, I've got to say. Budding young nesters and a few older nesters, but with new ideas, which is what we're all here to find out, right? I mean, I've got to say, over the last 20 years, it has been quite phenomenal how many changes have happened in the building industry, but none so much than in the last 2 years, I think. And it's all pointing towards a much, much greener future. I think the beauty of the building industry today is we're all starting to get a lot smarter. We're becoming more energy efficient, which is saving the impact on the environment, and it's also saving money for the back pocket, which is refreshing to hear in this day and age, particularly with the economy going the way it is right now. So I've got a list of little slides that I'm going to run through. This is a slightly younger version of myself, so my mates have been telling me, up here in my little design studio. This is actually where we started 24 years ago, would you believe? And since then I've hired about 172 staff in the design sector, with offices in Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong, Los Angeles, Sydney, Melbourne, and here, of course, now today. So the beauty of, I guess, the design industry over the last 2 decades is you get to absorb a lot of this information as you move forward. So what I'm going to chat to you about is housing. And a lot of you may know me as a well-known landscape designer. I did have a prior career on stage where I was tiptoeing through the tulips, wearing a very different costume, by the way. But these days, I'm donning a little jacket and talking to you guys about change. This is a brilliant quote that I have to say always resonates me. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. So this is about pioneering. And my friends that I'm going to introduce you to a little later on here, Chatham Homes, are doing just that with their brand new 8.2 star rated home. It's one of the first Green Star rated homes in Australia in the new sector. So it's a pretty astonishing accomplishment. So are we striving to source sustainable products and utilise the most efficient manufacturing processes? Are they reclaimed? Are they recycling? Are we asking our builders the questions that we really need them to answer? And are they making the most responsible choice on our behalf? Are we reducing the impact on the environment and homeowners' expenditure by exploring any and all the energy efficient tools? Can we design buildings that are truly passive, not active, and that produce their own energy one day and even recycle their own waste one day? The technology's out there and it's finding its way right through the floor here, starting with some of the leading builders. Are we creating new biodiversity through landscapes that are not dependent on high maintenance, pesticides, fertilised, filtered water? Let's fall in love with our own backyard again, Australia. Let's get native. By the way, what I mean about falling in love with your own backyard is falling in love with Australian native plants. And it's not enough to throw a few kangaroo paws in and a little bit of lamandra and go, hey, I went native. Because what's native here in Victoria is not native in Queensland, is not native in WA. It has to be endemic to that particular area. And that's how you actually start to build biodiversity. I was very shocked years ago to learn that landscape architects here in Australia actually only learn about 120 different species of plants. And of course, you drive down new developments now and you see the same trees all the way down, and you have these monocultures. That's not biodiversity. One native tree is not going to create biodiversity. We have to have a whole different conglomerate of a repetition of what exists naturally in the environment to bring back the flora and the fauna and the decrease of bees back into our neighbourhoods. But we'll talk more about that later on. So what are we doing wrong? I mean, this is beautiful, isn't it? What's wrong with this, guys? You think it's beautiful? Who thinks it's beautiful? This is America. It's not Australia. But there are some areas in Australia where I've seen stuff like this. This is complete devastation to the environment. We're wiping out all the trees, we're putting in brand new houses, we're pushing them up next to each other, backyards are getting smaller, houses are getting bigger, developers' wallets are getting fatter, and the environment suffers because of not just their loss of biodiversity, but because of their energy loss. Because we're building houses that don't conserve energy. We're losing 25% through the roof, 35% through the wall, 25% through bad windows and bad glazing. And then we're starting to lose 15% through the bottom there. This is pretty compelling stuff. And it's basic stuff. How do we get things right? We break convention. Back in 56 and 46 to 66, Pierre Koenig did this incredible home, which is one of the most photographed homes in Los Angeles. I've spent many hours in this house, and it truly is groundbreaking. And it's very, very simple. Butt glass windows, letting in all the natural light, passive architecture, very inexpensive to build. He broke convention, and he wasn't the only one. We started to look at a whole range of different homes that started to creep out into the environment and invite the garden back into our own house. Richard Neucher, this was a house just up near my house in Laurel Canyon. I drive past it every day, and the energy efficiency of this house is far superior than what they've been building in tract homes in some of the suburban areas throughout Los Angeles. Craig Elwood is another great designer, and you know, sometimes stopping the walls just before it hits the ceiling to allow the natural light to creep into some of the other rooms allows that natural flow of light and air, so that the circulation in the building is working really beautifully. This is the same house that I showed you early on, Pierre Koenig, and you'll see many photographs of this. These are real pioneers, guys. These guys are heroes. Charles Eames and Eero Saarinen, they did incredible homes, and you can start to see some of the roofing material creeping through the windows and then out into the outside. So all of a sudden, you're drinking in the exterior into the interior by choosing that one piece of material that flows indoor and outdoor. Prefab's a huge movement, and there's lots of guys doing this now on a really energy efficient basis. Timber Building Systems Australia, pre-built here in Melbourne as well. Lots of other companies doing it. Modscapes, it's efficient, it's flat packed. They've got robots building walls now in 2.5 hours, even with the wiring and the plumbing, everything in them, and it stacks on a truck, delivered to your site, and it all bolts together. Is it the most inexpensive way to build? No, but it's one of the fastest, and so time is money when you're borrowing funds. This is another beautiful prefab home right near my house in Avalon, here in Avalon in Sydney, and it was a great example of actually bringing the outdoors in, but allowing the main living room to feel like it's actually larger than what it is. It looks a bit like a shipping container, and that's the idea of the architecture, but wrapping the whole thing in all of this native vegetation, Myoporium parvifolium, and a whole bunch of natives sitting on the roof there, it means we're giving back biodiversity through the roofing system. The Illawarra Flamehouse project, this was an amazing piece of technology. The butterfly roofs, opening up with shutters and connecting to the landscape. And then of course we've got the Green Revolution. And I had a small part to play in this back in 1999 when we first started Backyard Blitz, and this whole wave of lifestyle shows, The Block, and now 52 shows since then, because Australians will never get sick of fresh ideas when it comes to feathering their own nests. They're hungry for ideas. We are quite brave in some of the design choices that we make. We're starting now to wrap our buildings in greenery. We're looking at sort of attaching common vegetable gardens into village landscapes where the community come together around food, and we celebrate the organic food revolution. We've got people now taking control over the food they're putting into their children's mouths. No pesticides, no herbicides, and actually growing their own and teaching children the importance of where food comes from and why they need these tools to move forward in life. Placing less impact on the agricultural industry and creating what we call the urban food bowl effect. This is community garden. Gardens, I've always said, have a lovely way of gluing people together. It really is a wonderful way to, and if you're not a member of any community gardens at this point, I encourage you all. My grandmother used to put these nasturtiums onto little sandwiches, and they've got the beautiful, lovely little spicy leaf, and my mum used to put them in salads. No, it's not a native, but it's a great edible. Tomatoes growing out of tyres, silver beet. It's a great way to actually get out there and meet other like-minded individuals. Rooftop gardens have made a huge impact in between spaces, the negative spaces in between the builds. We're starting now to learn about architecture in ways that we haven't before, where we're starting to really connect visually to the landscape so that the fourth wall in your house actually starts to become green. And it's the back wall of the garden, or it's the face wall of the entrance landscape. Rooftop gardens, of course, have come a long way over the last few years, and the urban thatch effect is real. In New York now, they're starting to green rooftops all over the city because of the urban heat island effect. This is real, guys. This is actually starting to create massive problems in cities worldwide. But nature's actually got it worked out. If we start to green these buildings and retrofit them now, sure, we can make a bit of an impact, but we can make a much bigger impact by changing the way we build housing moving forward. If we start to look at urban wildlife sanctuaries, and we start to think of the decline of the bee population, in some countries the bee population have gotten down as far as 18% of the total population of bees that was there before. We've just experienced incredible fires over the last 3 or 5 years. Now we're getting floods. Climates are moving and changing, and we've got to adapt our environments to make sure that we plant more polystaminous plants. That's lots of stamens, so bees and other pollinators have better opportunities to start to come back into our environment. School kitchen gardens are a huge one, and what I love about this is just the excitement on the kids' faces when they pull a carrot out of the ground, and the excitement when they take it home to their mum and they go, "Look what I grew, Mum." We did one recently on the living room for Channel 10 with my dear mate Miguel. I still can't understand a thing he says, by the way, can you? But he's awesome, he's got great energy, and we had a lot of fun building a school garden out there at Ashfield in Sydney recently, and we're doing another one very shortly, by the way. So watch that space. That's at Channel 10 on Sunday nights, I think. I did a book years ago called Edible Garden Design, and this was really about teaching people how to convert their ornamental gardens into edible gardens. So if you think about it, there's an edible plant out there that will give you or deliver the colour, the texture, the architecture, the shape and the habit that you need to see in the landscape. So for instance, we've all seen these buxus hedge or boxwood hedges, you sometimes call them. Now we could replace those with blueberries if we wanted to, and that might be an edible hedge. We could start to look at, instead of planting pyrus around the exterior, we could start to look at prunus or other flowering, fruiting trees that start to screen out the backyard. Passion fruit you can paint with. Artichokes make fantastic accent plants. Parsley and things make lovely borders. So there's a great way of actually using edible plants in ornamental ways. And if you're smart, you can start to change your backyard to become your own food bowl. And in 5 years' time, they'll be thanking you. This is a photo I took of the Atlanta Botanic Gardens, and they're growing all their herbs on this beautiful vertical landscape. It's really sensational. It's about 100 feet long. Now when we start to look at verticality, because let's face it, our cities are becoming crowded, we're starting to get this urban sprawl, and what are we doing with the vertical buildings that exist in our cities, and how are we making the most responsible version of that? I interviewed an incredible guy. I'll just move forward to Bosco Vertical really quickly. I interviewed an incredible guy called this is called Bosco Vertical, this building. And the guy that actually designed this was quite phenomenal. What he actually did in a vertical landscape could be done even horizontally. But what he did was he strengthens up the slabs and he started to extrude the balconies. But if you notice and you look very closely at the positioning of the balcony, they're offset, right? Because above every balcony, every plant needs its own ray of light. So letting the natural light come in and infiltrate and absorb into the building turns this thing into a living piece of architecture. And by stacking balconies on top of each other, we're suffocating the light from the plants below. So how can we have green buildings if we don't offset that engineering to begin with? It's just simple engineering, it's just simple architecture, and when we start to thicken up the slabs and bring so he thickened the slabs up by about 20 degrees. And when he thickened up that slab, he brought the rebar out into the slab, and then he turned the steel rebar up into the balustrades. So he built these giant planter boxes, and he enabled us to get up to 900 millimeters of soil on the external part of the balcony, and then he grew 30-foot trees on the external part of that balcony. This is 38 acres of landscape. And have a look at it now. So this is all about, take your curtains off the windows, guys, because your curtains just got replicated on the balcony, and suddenly your lounge room just got a whole lot bigger. It's a really lovely way to landscape. I'll just flick back a few pages here to this incredible bloke that I met in Paris a few years back. And he did this one. This is Patrick Blanc. Green hair, green fingernails, green jeans, green shoes. I do have a pair of green shoes, but I didn't wear them today. My mate Bradley would have been very embarrassed. But RM Williams do make green shoes if you order them ahead of time. This guy had an incredible system. He still uses it all over the world. If anyone's ever been into the Qantas Lounge in Sydney, you'll see his vertical garden landscape. He uses what's called a biodegradable material, and he almost, do you remember Grandma used to have that carpet underlay, and it looked like brown core fibre, and it sat underneath the car park, underneath the carpet, and when the dog peed on it, it smelt incredibly bad, and you never got rid of that smell, and it's just got worse and worse and worse, and it's biodegradable, right? That's kind of like the material that he uses. And the fact that it is biodegradable, it means the plants can actually start to take over with their root system. So when he first plants out these landscapes, and they can go up to 16 stories high in a non-wind area, he embeds the plants into that fibre, and it becomes what's called a soil substitute. But it still transports all of the oxygen, nutrients, trace elements and vitamins that are needed and required by the plant. And then in 10 years' time, all of that material has degraded away, and then the fibrous root system takes over. And that becomes the transport system for all the things, the elements that I talked about earlier on. It's a brilliant system. We've done something a little bit different. And here you can see Bosco Vertical in full growth again. We've done something a little bit different with our vertical gardens, and we've done this non-biodegradable material, which allows people to plant into a series of pockets into what I would call geotextile fabric. So up to 4 millimeters thick, soaks up all the water, 22 saddlebags. Notice I've offset the saddlebags just the same as Stefano Boeri, the architect of Bosco Vertical, offset his balconies. Because like him, I wanted to make sure that light gets into those pockets and we create a successful landscape with our verticality. You can get an instant green wall here for about 180 bucks. It's a pretty fast way to cover up those ugly fences and then start to bring nature inside your house as well. If you've got a well-ventilated space, and this is something that Victoria got behind a couple of years ago, you can actually reduce your volatile organic compounds in an average-sized family room by putting just 5 indoor plants, medium-sized plants, up to 1.2 metres high. Five indoor plants will reduce your volatile organic compounds by up to 75%. But if you buy the right home, you don't even have to think about that. And I'll tell you about that in just a few minutes. Beautiful ways of bringing natural light into the home. Could there be a home that actually starts to bring landscape into the centre of our courtyard? Could there be a landscape that starts to actually filter in so that from every room of the house, you're looking out onto a landscape? And the garden becomes a part of the house, and the house becomes a part of the garden. This is something we designed a few years back. And it was looking at general case study homes that might live on a 406 square metre block. I love that you're pulling your phones out and taking photos of this, because it's a great example of, I think, bringing nature into housing. And a lot of great builders are doing this now. We're out of time, so we've actually got to make some changes very, very quickly. How are we going for time, by the way? Another 9 minutes. Fabo. This is Frank Lloyd Wright, one of the most famous architects in the world, and one of my favourite architects. I visited this falling water many years ago, and the reason it became so famous is because of its integration of nature. But you know, Frank, when he was interviewed, he talked about the way that he designed houses, and he said he would take photos of horizons and the clouds sitting over the mountaintops, and then he would replicate those streams of clouds and the mountains into the landscape and then offset them all, right? So he's actually using nature to design his buildings, but he's not the only one. Regenerative design is something we've really got to start thinking about. Understanding what is required to exist in an environment where we want to create less impact. Yes, take photos of this slide because it's a really interesting one. Not a lot of people talk about regenerative design. A lot of people talk about regenerative farming, but this is a very different concept. And there are homes out there that are doing just this. And we're going to learn about that in just a moment. There's great innovators out there now creating lightweight bricks out of hemp. And there's studies being done on this, the industrial application of hemp. Back in the 50s, they were making steering wheels for cars out of hemp. It's an incredibly strong material. Why? Because it's a monocot. It has lots of parallel veins running next to each other, just like bamboo. And when you compress that, you get tensile and compactive strength. So why have we got it so wrong? Why are we sitting in traffic with 70 million hours in stopped traffic in the Netherlands just last year alone? And here's our lovely termites with 0 hours stopped in traffic. Why are 20% of the world's annual energy use to keep these structures within 1 degree Celsius? 20% of the world's annual energy use is just to keep our bad buildings alive. And the termites, 0 energy use. And they do this just out of dirt, and they pull it all together. We can learn so much from nature. This is about biomimicry. There's been some incredible studies on actual grapefruits. And if you drop a grapefruit from 10 foot, the interior portion of that grapefruit is not disturbed because nature's found a way of putting a coat of armor around it where it actually bounces. So then some of the industrial design teams have actually started to study the cellular breakdown of the external of that amazing grapefruit, and they're making a whole range of products out of it. This is a book I did a few years ago called Living Design, which is how to bring the outside in and how to create a transterior home. Biomimicry is a part of my furniture design as well. So we looked at the ways that a ficus tree or a fig tree grows, and they get those stabilizing roots. And then we've designed stools that actually look at a stable base with a wider top, just like a fig tree does. We then started to look at the human bone and why that's so strong. And could that become a certain leg of one of our most famous stools sold in Italy now in about 3,200 stores? And this is a beautiful thing called the Bungalow Chair. And we've now created about 40 different products over this system just through looking at nature. There's so much we can learn. We then started to look at these sorts of shapes in sand dunes and then bringing that into furniture. Because intrinsically we're all connected to nature. We do want to find out more about it. We looked at the chrysanthemum and then we created these huge engraved walls, and this was our way of bringing nature inside the home. So according to Vancouver's website, 55% of all greenhouse gas emissions in a city actually come from buildings. Isn't that astonishing? And so they're now driving around the city at a cost of $6 per home and doing these incredible scans, heat scans, where they're watching all the heat come out of the building at night. This is a really great example of very poor architecture. This is a great example of incredible architecture. Energy efficient, smart building home systems, amazing, amazing green smart homes. These guys, they were finalists in 2022, and they're the first to win the Green Star rating from the Green Building Council of Australia, who I do a lot of work with, which is part of the reason why I've teamed up with them. I've actually got the owner of the company with me right here, Mr. Bradley Hall, and I'm going to bring him up real quick just to tell you a little bit more about some of the incredible innovations that, quite frankly, one of Australia's greenest home builders has put into place in just the last 2 years off his own back with his incredible team. Come on up, Bradley. How are you, mate?
Not too bad.
Good to see you.
Likewise.
I always love inviting blokes up that are shorter than me. Makes me feel incredibly tall.
But you've got heels on.
I have got heels on.
Yeah. We're probably running over time already, but I'm sorry.
No, we're okay.
As everyone can see, Jamie's got incredible passion, and his passion is incredibly broad. I mean, he covers everything. Even though he's a horticulturalist and an impressive dancer, he covers an incredible range of information and knowledge, particularly around horticulture and green building. Hence why we actually invited Jamie. Well, actually, I think Jamie actually invited us to be his ambassador rather than the other way around.
I did.
It's to distill everything that Jamie's just said into the purpose and the reason that we're at Chatham Homes, that we're actually at this event for this weekend, is based on the vision and the passion that he's just articulated to everybody in this room at this point in time. I'm not from the building industry originally. I come from a totally different industry sector and an entirely different background. Thanks, mate. I'm not that short.
No.
And I found it incredibly frustrating and incredibly sad that this industry was not stepping up to the mark from a sustainability and environmentally effective perspective. So I thought, I'll put my money where my mouth is, and like an idiot, in 2019 I went and bought a building company. It's probably the dumbest thing I could have done pre-pandemic, but it's been an interesting exercise ever since.
Maybe dumb for you, but smart for Australia, I think.
We hope so.
When I saw what these guys were doing, I actually approached them and said, hey, can I help you voice this? Can I help you get this to every suburb in Australia? Because if we all built one of these homes, our energy consumption here in Australia would absolutely dive, and we'd be putting money back into your pocket, and we'd be putting energy back into the grid.
Absolutely.
So how do you do it, mate? And to be honest, it does cost money to build homes like this, but
not really. So as Jamie was exhibiting before, a lot of what he was showing there, that's pretty sophisticated, it's pretty expensive, it's high-end, it's a different sector of this volume building space, where we've got first home buyers, second home buyers, empty nesters, etc. You know, most people are looking to spend somewhere in the vicinity, maximum of around 650 to 700,000 on a construction process. A lot of these outcomes, they're also coming in at that 250 to 400 range. Now, of course, builders are under a huge amount of pressure and have been for the last 2.5 years. So trying to transition to environmentally sustainable, healthy and resilient homes. Now, we've all just seen the incredible deluge of water that's occurred over the last couple of weeks. That flooding is a major issue. Well, all of the existing volume-built stock in greenfield sites, even knockdown rebuilds, they're not resilient homes. 65% of all product built in the last 20 years in this country is suffering currently from black mold incursion. So moisture management, condensation management, massive issues. That affects an individual's health within the home. So what we've spent the last 2.5 years doing is taking that level of sophistication that Jamie's presented up there, and we've worked out how to build homes at a budget point that is accessible in the volume building market space.
there was an article recently just to talk about black mold, because it is the silent killer, of a woman who was 35 years of age who developed early Alzheimer's through black mold. Did anyone see the story? It was in the Sydney Morning Herald. Look it up.
Well, that's actually the least. So I'm sure, and sorry to use negative or fairly distressing stories, but if you cast your mind back to 2019, 2020 with the bushfire season and that extraordinary amount of particulate pollution that ended up in the atmosphere, one of the saddest facts out of that is that there was 1,200 uterine deaths in New South Wales as a consequence of smoke inhalation by the mothers. That's extraordinary. Now, that's not reported. You can only get that information through the New South Wales State Government, and it's very tricky to get hold of because, of course, they don't want to expose that sort of information. Well, we had exactly the same problem here in Victoria. Interestingly, this home here, which is in Atwell, which is just on the edge of Caroline Springs, we built this home and nearly finished it in that period of the bushfires. That home is installed with an MVAC system, an air filtration system that is a HEPA style filter. That home there, where it's situated, when you stood in that front alcove section behind the glass front door, this is the system. So it's an American product from Delos. It's an incredible system. $2,500 to install not only this management, the Darwin management system, but the air filtration and water filtration system into the home. But when you stood, we could stand inside that front glass door. It was you couldn't see much outside that front glass door, obviously. But when you stood inside, the smoke, the particulate pollution, was at over 600 parts per million. You could not see more than 35 metres outside.
Because of the fires, right?
Because of the fires, because of the smoke. Well, guess what? There was no smoke pollution inside the house. Now, 64% of all children today are born with a respiratory complaint or asthma.
Some of us are actually born with hay fever, and then they decide to study horticulture for 4 years and become a gardener, right? So this doesn't just work for children who are suffering asthma, it also works for people who suffer from hay fever, because it takes out 99% of volatile organic compounds out of the home, which includes pollens, which includes smoke particles, and includes mold and so forth.
Absolutely. So really simple things. To build homes, what we've worked out, we got to 7-star, happy to say, ahead of the market. Like, we're comfortably 4 to 5 years ahead of the market as a builder, and we've absorbed the cost of working out how to do this, but really simple things. You've got to go double glaze. Don't go single glaze. It's absolutely absurd, because by 2025, under federal mandate, you will not be able to build a home without double glazing. And I strongly suggest you move away from aluminium to UPVC as the framing solution.
Why is that?
Air tightness. So you also want a builder who is going to seal your frame to slab, who is going to run blower door tests on your house, so that they actually get, they get the air exchange ratio below 5 as much as possible. Now, Passive House demands 0.63 for minimum Passive House certification. We don't need that in Australia. And that's why, as a builder, we went for the Green Building Council Australia's Green Star certification program. And again, very proud to say we're the only builder. Oh, thanks, darling.
You're right.
No, nipples over there. We're the only builder to have actually achieved that in the country. We are tiny. We start 150 a year. Now, all this comes down to, and we also spend a lot of time talking to all the other builders. If there's any builders here who want to talk to us about how we did this, come and talk to me. Our head of construction's here. We've got a bunch of our people here, because we want to help the entire industry pivot to building sustainable homes that stand the test of time, i.e. resilience. So heavy rainstorms, hailstorms, heat waves, etc. People are safe inside their homes, and internally they're healthy. No VOCs, air filtered, water filtered. You're not using plastics. We partner with a company out of Italy called Caracol. Caracol are the only company in adhesives, grouts, paints and finishings who don't use Portland cement. Portland cement is one of the biggest carbon contributors globally. I.e., when you hear about concrete, you hear that concrete contributes 8% of all global carbon. It's because of Portland cement. Well, Portland cement is through everybody's houses currently. It's really bad shit, pardon my language, but you've got to get that out of your house, because from a volatile organic compound perspective, it is dreadful stuff.
So when the average home that's built here in Australia is built, it's built with about 20 times the human acceptable levels of volatile organic compounds. And all of this is just starting to come out in studies now. So when you get a system that actually comes with the home that takes out 99% of the VOCs, you've got not just a home that's healthier for the environment, but healthier for you and your kids.
Here we go.
So this is...
No, I'm just going to go back for a second. Just, so if you want to take photos of ideas of what to deploy and employ and ask your builders to use in your construction, these are 4 key components. They're fantastic. They're simple. They're already available in the market. The funniest one up the top, the UPVC windows, double glazed systems. Europe has been using these systems for 30 years. It's absurd. We are so far behind the rest of the world, it's ridiculous. And we shouldn't be. We should actually be innovators and market leaders globally with how we construct. And like Jamie showed before, that greenfield site in America where it's just house after house after house, they are heat sinks. They get so goddamn hot that at the moment in America, people are actually dying in their homes during heat waves because the house is not thermally capable and they don't have air conditioning systems that can actually protect people within their homes, and elderly are dying from heat exhaustion.
Particularly in Las Vegas in Nevada, where I lived for quite a few years, there was astonishing amount of deaths. Still happening now every summer.
Absolutely. So as a consequence of that, then you want to thermally insulate your house properly. So insulation is a critical one. Hebel, it's an aerated concrete product. We're not a massive fan of those sort of products, but it is a market-leading product. It leaves bricks for dead. We shouldn't be using weatherboard. It's such an easy product to install. It's cost-effective, etc. Most builders should be pivoting to that, particularly because at the moment, if anyone's building a house here, you will experience major delays on site. One of the main contributors to current delays in construction right now are bricklayers. They're upcharging $1.80 a brick, so they've jumped by 50 to 60% in cost, and the delays that are occurring are exorbitant on site. Absolutely ridiculous. So just fantastic.
So just to spell that out for you, instead of stacking bricks on top of each other, which is labour intensive and creating lots of opportunities for loss or heat transfer, this is one big sheet that goes from floor to ceiling, one big panel.
Yep.
And it's that thick, it's 90 millimetres thick. So it's like putting one brick in place.
75.
Faster, 75 mil.
75.
You can get 90 though.
Yeah, you can, but
So
you
be
won't.
quiet. Quickly now, we've got a couple more minutes. Stick with us, guys.
And then the last one, you want a heating and ventilation, air conditioning. So mechanical ventilation or HVAC system, so MVAC or HVAC, you absolutely want to price that in, along with heat pumps. The best heat pump product provider in this country is Stiebel-Eltron, in our opinion, after doing huge amount of market research. So we strongly recommend it. It costs a little bit more, but it makes a massive difference to your heating and cooling costs and your overall NatHERS rating at the end of the day on your property. And then the only thing I would add to that is absolutely go PV on the roof, inverter and battery. Don't listen to what the media say.
That's solar, photovoltaic.
Exactly. It's all bollocks. Get solar, get off grid. You need to be off grid. Your home needs to be able to stand alone from its 90 to 95% of its energy consumption requirements, because right now, look what's happening with all the flood affected areas. There's no power, okay? Now, if you build your home properly, you can actually seal the home and ensure that the wiring loom is protected from water ingress. Now, if you do that, and you've got solar and battery, you are standalone, and you can actually survive. You can run all your MVAC systems, your HVAC systems, your refrigeration. You can run your entire house, and that means get rid of gas, because gas will be gone in 5 years in this country.
All right, quickly. Anything else?
No, we'll go down a rabbit hole otherwise.
Okay, guys, Sarah, just before you walk away, the lovely Sarah over there is standing at our Chatham home stand right at the very front on the right-hand side. She'll be with the boys who are actually building these houses. Any questions you have, please go up and talk to them about their incredible Green Star 8.2 star rated home. Thank Bradley Hall, ladies and gents.
Thanks, Jamie.
And thank you everyone for sticking it out and listening to us. It was great to have you. Cheers.
Thank you so much.